locked up since I was 15 years old. 22 now, I'm about to be 23.
Was there a specific moment or event that made you realize you were on the wrong path?
Honestly, I don't think I really realized it till I was sitting in the cell and just like thinking about my life.
What were you thinking when you were sitting in there?
Like, this is really what I've like put myself to, and like this is my life. Like, I messed up, and I wish I would have realized all this before. It's like I wish I would have not taken this for me to learn this.
Right.
I wish I would have known this before I was sitting in this situation.
Right. Can you share your experience with the legal system with us?
The legal system, like, oh no, I believe, like, if they were like believe more in like rehabilitation than just punishing us and locking us down, there would be a lot better things. Like, if, like teaching us instead of just locking us in a cell, give us the programs to learn from the things, like more things like what we did. Like give us opportunities and programs to like teach us more things to do in life than what we knew.
Right.
Instead of just locking us in a cell and then telling us, oh, you did this wrong, and then just locking us down and then letting us out. Like, I think if they really like talked to us more and gave us programs that taught us stuff and gave us opportunities and more like tools on our belt to like, be successful in life, we would.
This call will be terminated in 2 minutes.
Welcome to Pathways to Breaking the Cycle podcast. And I'd like to introduce Brandy Cedillo, who is with Stronger Together, Never Alone, and also Tracy Chavez, who is with Stronger Together, Never Alone, and myself, of course, Kimberly Apodaca, who is with Stronger Together, Never Alone, and also Millions for Prisoners. How are you girls doing tonight?
Wonderful.
Awesome. Yes. I'm so happy to be in the studio with you guys. And tonight we're here to discuss youth behind bars, stories of crime and redemption. And also I feel very blessed this evening because we have some amazing guests tonight, which are our sons. Yeah. We have, and they're calling in from 2 different facilities. We actually have another gentleman as well, and who were committing crimes as youth and into early adulthood and are now doing lengthy sentences. They joined us here today to speak on their experiences and the social, economic, and environmental factors that lead to youth crime, and who they are today and what the impact of incarceration with minimal resources has done for them. And I think that all of us here sitting at the table tonight probably all have a story, right? Yes. About our kids and what they have experienced. And I'm just going to start with you, Brandy. Go ahead and share a little bit about yourself and Esteban.
So I am a person with lived experience, actually. So I came from a background of addiction and incarceration myself. So my son's childhood was not the easiest. During his evaluation, before sentencing, the doctor said he had every ACE there was, the adverse childhood trauma. So he had every ACE there was. But they still decided to sentence him to 22 years in prison at 17 years old.
Wow.
He went in when he was 15. He had just turned 15 years old.
Wow. We are going to talk about the first topic that we're going to discuss today is the root causes of youth crime. And I think that my son did go in at the age of 18, but he didn't go into JDC, and I've told that story. He went into YDDC. So I don't have as much of experience as you ladies do with the, juvenile justice system. Tracy, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your story and about Tim.
So Tim was 15 years old.
Oh, put your mic up a little bit. There you go.
Tim was 15 years old and dealing with a lot of traumas from his father passing, his best friend dying of cancer, and just really got into some youth that were all walking down the wrong path. I'm not saying that's their fault, because it was Timothy's choice to stay where he was at. He was also 15 years old when he
Right.
was arrested, charged with first-degree murder, spent 2.5 years at the Juvenile Detention Center, almost 3 years at YDDC, and then went into the Department of Corrections, thankfully, at age 21.
Root causes of youth crime. What are the most significant social, economic, and environmental factors that lead to youth crime? Well, as I was doing my research, as I always do, there's 3 factors that contribute to youth crime: family, socioeconomic class, and educational experience. And I can say in my situation with Josiah, I can tell you that my kid was a latchkey kid. He spent a lot of time alone because I worked 2 jobs. I can also say that the educational system failed my son dearly, and so did I in ways, because, I was absent a lot. And I said this to a friend the other day, that because he said, I think that you put too much guilt on yourself. And I said, my child needed a mom, not a successful business. And that's just how I view it. That's what I carry. And that's just what it is, because when Josiah was out in the streets, there was a couple of girls that he hung out with, and they came over to my house one day and they said, yeah, we asked Josiah, why do you want to be out here in the street? Like, your mom has such a beautiful home for you, and you have it made there. Like, why would you want to be out here with us? And he said, because I'm alone all the time. And that literally broke my heart. But you know what? That's the truth, right? Mm-hmm. That was a contributing factor. My son didn't want to be alone all the time.
But so I was home all the time, and Timothy had a beautiful home, but still chose to do that.
No, you're right. You're right, Trace. You're absolutely right.
So don't guilt yourself all the way, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I also feel that, that's a little bit of a contributing factor. His school was a little bit of his contributing factor. And just, the dynamics of everything that played a role for Josiah to be lured, right?
Yes. That's kind of...
I think that you can probably,
Yes.
relate to that. How do family dynamics and upbringing contribute to a young person's likelihood to engage in criminal behavior? I'm going to say the first thing that comes to my mind when I read that question is generational trauma.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. What would you say,
The first
Randy?
thing when I read that question was economic. My son kind of felt that because we didn't have much money, and of course my addiction and incarceration and stuff like that, he kind of felt like he had to go out and make money. Being the oldest child, his dad is in prison, and he felt, well, what am I going to do to help our situation? What can I go sell or do, to help? So
Right.
That's kind of what stood out to me from that.
And you're right about that, because our last podcast, Chris Herrera was he was on the podcast with us, and he said that as well. He said, I didn't have things that other kids had, and I didn't want to show up to school wearing the same thing that I wore the day before. And and that does play a huge role, because I remember feeling that way being in school. My mom didn't buy us name brand stuff. Yes. And high quality clothing. Like, we got what we got, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you feel about that, Tracy?
I mean, it's the same thing: generational trauma, economic disadvantages for families, multitudes of things, addictions within families.
Right. Yeah, they all play a role. And how does poverty influence a young person's decision to commit crimes? So what came to me was survival skills, mm-hmm. quick money making, mm-hmm. parental disregard, rejection, and making interactions with peers. And what I mean by that is there's like with Josiah's situation, Josiah was probably one of the most spoiled child because he was the youngest, but yet he was still lured by that, by that life. And he'll be explaining that in a little bit when he calls in. He'll share what his experience with all that, was. But I definitely, like you just said, you said that poverty played
Yeah.
a role
Yeah.
in Esteban's actions and him going out into the streets and, getting involved in what he got involved in. And I think that us three sitting here today can probably agree on that. Do you agree, Trace? Or
Yeah, no, 100%. I listen to Tim sometimes talk about how he felt that we were all struggling and depressed from his father's passing, that maybe I didn't acknowledge how much I was grieving, or I was trying to keep the same family structure together, but apparently it wasn't right because it impacted him so differently.
right. And our kids, even with Ray's passing and Josiah being in YDDC at the time, our kids don't. I mean, we're trying to learn how to process our grief, even with our children being incarcerated, right? We're trying to process that grief. And I think about Josiah trying to process that, or like Tim trying to process his dad's death. How old was Tim when his dad passed away?
13
Like, how does a
or
14?
12. I think he was 12 when his dad.
How does a 12-year-old process that when an adult has a hard time processing that,
Yes.
right? Because we go out, some of us self-medicate, some of us get severely depressed and don't want to come out of the house. Navigating through grief is very difficult. One day you're up, one day you're down. It's a roller coaster ride.
Can I kind of point out something that I just realized, when in you guys speaking? So Esteban's dad got sentenced to 13 years in federal prison at the age of 11. He was 11. Yes. And so you guys are saying, the dad is gone in all our situations.
Right.
But I know us as moms carry the weight of that. Like,
Right.
we all have
100%.
that.
And then
that
we
guilt
become
of what did we do wrong?
Yes.
What did we do wrong? you know?
Yes, and then we have to become the
Mom.
father and the mother, right? We have to play that role on both sides, and we're not. I mean, we're moms by nature. We're nurturers. We're there to love them unconditionally.
Right.
Where the man has more of the cracking the whip, where I wasn't like that. I am not a good disciplinarian. I'm not. I did hold boundaries for Josiah, strong boundaries. I held him accountable, but I wasn't a good disciplinarian. I loved him through everything instead of correcting him, however that may look.
Yeah, I think I was the same way. And then I did a lot of guilty parenting from my past, because even though I got myself together at the time his dad went to prison, I was already doing better in my own recovery and being out of prison and stuff, but I held a lot of guilty parenting. So, anything he wanted or needed or anything I was capable, I was like, here. And yeah, there was no telling him no.
I did the same exact thing. I really did. I was like, oh, you want a new skateboard? Let's go get that new
Yeah,
skateboard.
yeah,
Oh, you want new Vans? Let's go get you some new Vans, because I thought that's going to make him happy.
Yeah.
That's going to bring, and it did. It did bring fulfillment, but temporary fulfillment.
Yeah.
It didn't bring him the fulfillment that a father would have brought him, or a family unit, or a mom being home when he got home and there's dinner ready. The pizza man already knew us by name because we delivered. Seriously, that's all they ever ate as teenagers. Him and Ryan was pizza, and the pizza man already knew. I feel bad about that, but I'm not a cook. It's just side note. So let's go on, and we're going to talk about social media and crime. Josiah's supposed to call in at 6:30. How much of a role does social media, platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat play in encouraging or facilitating youth crime? And I will say, just like what you sent me last week that initiated this whole subject, right? Because this podcast turned a complete U-turn, because when Tracy sent me some photos of some kids, tell us the story, Trace.
So apparently there were some kids at a park on the west side, I believe. And I don't even know how old the young man was that passed away, but his friends were retaliating on social media, and the pictures that they were posting were frightening. Even though I've seen them from Tim's friends back in years ago, these just are babies. Even though I have to think that my kid was a baby then too. But yeah, so that's how we turned this whole podcast around, because it was just like nothing is changing. Nothing is stopping. Nobody, I don't feel law enforcement is doing enough to get guns out of hands of kids. I don't feel that the justice system is doing enough for diversion. It's just, nobody's really doing anything and just continuing to lock up our children.
Right. And these kids literally, Brandy, they looked like they were like 13 to me. They looked like no more than 14 years old. If they were more than 14 years old, like seriously, but they weren't. They were little. I told Tracy, I am flabbergasted. Like seriously, like what do we do? Yeah. We've got to do something to help these kids, or to like, you know, get them on a different path. Like what can we do to?
They need to hear from us. They need to hear from our kids.
Yes. I think, our kids, people who have been there. Because that's, okay, so my line of work, I'm a certified peer support worker, which is, the main word in there is peer, right? And I had a peer teach me, somebody who been where I've been, walked to the road I walked on, but has came out on the other end.
Correct.
You know? So to me, that's where I wanted to do this type of work, is because hearing from somebody else who can relate to your story and show you how they did it, you know, that's like a big deal. So I think, hearing from like our kids. And
it's easier to listen to somebody who's not going to cast judgment on you, who isn't going to make you feel like you are bad or wrong for what you got involved in, but help you figure out, like you said, to get to the other side.
And Brandy, I just want to take a minute to congratulate you, because I am like super proud of you.
We all are.
You always share your story, and I'm always just so blown away, because I'm like, how could Brandy have ever lived that? I can't even see her living. I can't even see her living like that. I just see her in a different light, you know? So I just want to congratulate you for all of your accomplishments, you know, for being the mother that you are today. I see you the way you mother all your children, including Esteban, and the way that you mother your cute little pumpkin that you have, you know, your little baby. He's going to be 2?
Yeah.
You know, it's so precious to see, and I'm just so happy and proud of you that you've gotten to where you've gotten to, and all the success that has come your way. I think it's so amazing. It's so amazing. So the next bullet point under social media and crime, can social media be used as a tool to prevent youth crime?
That's actually where I was going to go. To prevent youth crime.
Yes.
I guess I'm going kind of back a little bit.
It's okay. Share it.
Because like the guns and things, like, I don't know, back when I was getting in trouble, you know, you had to have like a certain person. But now, you know, there's apps to find drugs and guns. And I'm like, this is crazy, from random strangers. Like, they don't even need to know. Like, whenever I was doing this, like, you had to at least know somebody who knew somebody to, you know, like, get something.
Exactly.
But now you just go on your phone like you're grocery shopping at Walmart.
Meet up with somebody in a few minutes and you have a gun or an assault rifle or drugs or all of the above.
Right. Even I heard on Snapchat that you can go on Snapchat and find a gun like within 5 minutes.
100%.
Yes.
That's just so sad to me. And you know, Tracy and I were talking the other day. We went up to we took a self-care day, and we drove up to the Giggling Springs in Hemis and went to soak, and we had such an amazing time. It was nice. But we were talking about that and talking about like what are we going to do? Like, we need to do something. We need to do something. You know, we need to do the footwork to try to get the word out there to these kids. And not that, you know, when I was a teenager, yes, I listened sometimes, and sometimes I was like, you don't know what you're talking about, whatever, you're old,
Yeah.
you know? But the crime has just gotten so severe and so out of control. Like, it's out of control, and it's just at their disposal. At just a click of a phone, like, oh yeah, I'm pissed off, and this guy did something to me, or he messed with my lady. Bing, Snapchat, I'm getting a gun because I'm
Well,
gonna.
and all of these kids, and it doesn't appear to be bad kids that have guns. It seems that our youth all feel they need to have guns
Right.
because everybody else has a gun, and that they need to be safe.
Right,
So they're all carrying.
right,
And that's a
Yeah.
frightening thought. You see, doesn't matter what high school it is, they find guns in backpacks, in cars. It doesn't matter what economic background these kids are coming from. And why are we here?
right. Share with us, Trace. I know that you have a mom that you're working with, and we won't name any names, but that her son comes from a good family as well, and she's struggling with her child as
Yeah,
well.
and he is in the justice system, and he is continually making bad decisions, and now is missing with a stolen gun. And that's what I think frightened me when I heard about the shooting. Was my first thought was that was her child.
Yeah.
And oh my God, how are we all going to support this mom? Thankfully, it wasn't her child, but some other mother lost her child.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, he's in the justice system in different counties, but nobody seems to have enough to keep him not contained. That's not the word I'm looking for. To get him involved in stuff that would curb him from continually making the same and different mistakes.
Right.
Because I think because it's like that's just one of the ways that our system is failing us. Like they're just keeping them. That's it, And people can get out of being kept, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Right.
if
No,
I'm-
I understand
You
completely what you're
understand?
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to teach them like new skills. How do you, skills and other ways to just heal, You can't just keep somebody there and then expect them to do something different. Like, how does that even make sense?
Well, and we don't even have the correct facilities for juveniles. So most of these kids are addicted to something.
Yes.
And so they get released and not keeping in custody because they haven't committed something serious enough yet to stay in custody.
Right.
So they're being released back into the community without a lot of resources. And so
Yeah.
they need to use whatever they've been addicted to.
They're self-medicating.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So going back to, can social media be used as a tool to prevent youth crime? And when I researched this, what came up for me was mediating conflict. So the first thing I thought about when I read mediating conflict is when you're a mom or a dad, parents, and you see your child having conflict with somebody, or let's say, oh, my kid got in a fight today, or there was a dispute at school with between my child and another child. The thing I used to do as a mom is I would go to the school and I'd say, I'd really like to talk with the parent, and all of us, let's have a mediation and all of us speak together so we can squash this,
Right.
so it doesn't keep escalating, right? Let's bring some resolve to this situation. And I feel that not enough parents do that.
Yeah.
No,
I know.
I agree.
And a lot of times, more times than not, they instigate it.
Oh, yeah.
The parents like, oh, don't let them do that to you. Like, knock them out or do whatever. But why aren't we like trying to find some resolve that way instead of it escalating and getting to a place where somebody ends up getting really hurt?
Well, and I think that parents are busy. Parents have all these things going on. Do you not agree that how parent involvement was with your older kids versus Josiah was
Yeah.
so much different because I look
Definitely.
at my older children and how I knew all of their friends' parents compared to Tim's. Out of a dozen kids, I maybe knew one parent.
Right. No, you're absolutely right about that. Now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Because, Brittany compared to Josiah.
Parents count on their cell phone to navigate where their child is,
Right.
not talking to the parents of where they are.
Right. No, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
We parent our
Another
kids
thing.
with our cell phones.
Yeah. Hey, location, where are they? But my kid used to leave his phone somewhere so that I would think he was really at that place, and then he wouldn't be at that place. He'd be somewhere else. So, they're smart. They're not dumb.
Exactly.
Another point I found was reaching out by phone to another parent to calm the tension, conducting in-person outreach to engage young people before rising to gun violence. That one really was like, ugh, that's what we're dealing with in this day and age.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everything goes to gun violence. There's no more fist fighting. It's just shoot.
Yeah.
As much as we hear like through the media, and I don't watch the news a whole lot. I always ask Tracy. I go to Tracy and I'm like, "Hey, Trace, what happened?" Or she'll share something with me, and I'm like, "Really? Send me a screenshot. Let me read it," because I just can't. It makes me spiral when I see all of the youth violence and stuff that's happening.
Our trauma.
Yeah.
Our trauma. Like, my other son got in a fight at school. He's actually been in 2 fights at school, and they were just fist fights. The principal, mandated mediation between just the 2 students. That was a requirement to come back to school. And, but in my mind, because of that trauma, was exactly like you're saying, the gun violence. Somebody's going to come back and shoot you. Like, I don't want to send you back to school no more. After that first fight, I was like, you're not going to school no more. He's like, what do you mean, Mom? And I'm like, you're not going back to school. What if they get mad and they come back with a gun? I don't know this child, and he went back, no problems. And so maybe even like the news a little bit puts that fear in us.
Oh,
too,
absolutely. Which is why I don't like watching it.
Yeah.
Because
That's awesome that they're doing just what you were
Yeah,
talking
the
about,
mediation.
conflict mediation, to help the boys resolve their issue.
They didn't bring in parents, just to pick up the kid as far as the mediation, but they did
But
make
still,
the
they
kids.
did mediation.
Yeah.
It's not like what you were just saying about the news. They magnify everything, right?
Right.
And it instills fear in us. Because I'm like that even driving down the street. When I'm at a red light and there's like a group of young kids next to me, I'm like, I'm not even looking over there. I'm just going to keep my, I'm just going to look straight. Because nowadays you just can't. And it's
But that's
sad.
horrible,
I
too,
know.
because you think about like our kids, like
I know.
somebody's looking at our kids.
But
like
you should
that.
engage, because I was driving down 4th Street the other day, and there was a car full of teenagers, and the kid was like acting stupid out the window and thought I was going to be whatever. And I started laughing at him and like giving him the sign. And then he was like telling them to slow down, and he's rolling down the window and he's talking to me, and I was having a conversation with him. So
Oh,
love
that's
that.
awesome. Yeah, I
hey,
know. Hey,
girl,
girl.
I was a cool old lady.
Oh, God, what a compliment. That's
Yes.
awesome. But you're right, Tracy. I do need to because I operate out of fear a lot
Yeah.
and out of my trauma, like you were saying, Brandy. Immediately I'm like, oh my God, I'm scared. And then I have bad anxiety. So, that intensifies. So
Yeah.
anyway, okay, let's go on. The juvenile justice system. This is Tracy's favorite, and she's so knowledgeable about this.
It's a complicated weave of, I don't know.
I don't have a lot of knowledge on it just because my son, he did go into YDDC, but he didn't experience anything in JDC the way your children did, And Josiah honestly I felt had a good experience at YDDC. But Tracy, do you think the juvenile justice system should prioritize rehabilitation or punishment, and why?
Rehabilitation. Punishment? Yes, we all know that our children need to be held accountable for mistakes that they made and bad behaviors that they possessed. And does that accountability mean that there needs to be some time incarcerated? Yes, possibly. But through that, is strong rehabilitation, strong therapy,
Right.
life skills, all the things that they're going to need because they are coming home to us one day. And we want the healthiest, best version to come into our community and have their chance at life as well.
Right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that, Trace. Our current legal frameworks, and those of you who don't know what legal frameworks comprise of, it is a set of documents that include the Constitution, legislation, regulations, and contracts, effective in preventing recidivism among young offenders. What do you think, Trace?
I mean, I don't even know if legislation is correct because we have our district attorney who has his own memorandum and ways of doing things. The Constitution, you're entitled to representation and your day in court, but it's just so much of a tricky system. Like it's scary to go to trial because people listen to the media and believe that something is one way instead of sitting in a courtroom and listening to the true facts of the case and not being misled by outside sources that are not true. I feel that juveniles should be charged as juveniles and adjudicated accordingly. I don't feel that a child deserves to be tried as an adult. They're not an adult and they don't have an adult's brain. And we want to hold them accountable because an adult or a social media or whatever happened put a crime or drugs in a child's hand and they made a bad decision because of whatever. Everybody's case is different, right? Correct?
Right.
So, but then we want to make them be an adult and be accountable. But they're still a child.
Yes.
You're
And so
absolutely
you're
right.
sending a child into an adult system that's going to cause more trauma, continued with minimal resources, and expect that child to fix himself on his own and become the best version of himself. Some will succeed, most may not.
You're absolutely right. Trace, you sit in a lot of courtrooms, and which I just always find it to be such a blessing because, you're out there in the community, you're, attending different children's court hearings to be supportive of not only that child, but also the family.
Well, it's complicated. It's hard to understand all the legal things, and things happen in a courtroom fast. Things are said, legal terms are used, and a lot of families, you're so stressed and traumatized because your kid is in whatever situation that you're in, you truly don't understand what you're hearing. Or you hear words, but do you understand? No.
No. That was the case with me, and that's where Tracy came in and helped me so much because, yes, she's exactly right. We're so stressed out, so traumatized, and you're barely trying to wrap your mind around the first thing that the action actually took place and your child is incarcerated.
Right.
And then they're throwing all these things at you. Oh, he's going to get this many years, and, he needs to do this and this. And, somebody with an outside view that can sit there and walk you through it. It's amazing. So I'm super grateful for Tracy.
I am too. I tell her that all the time. I'm like, Trace, I think you should just go to law school. Because she is. She's
Yes.
so.
I'm
she's
too
so,
old, but
she's
I would
so
if I was
amazing.
younger.
She's so amazing. Josiah was supposed to call in at 6:30, and he hasn't called in yet. Do you guys have contact with any of your kids?
I missed Tim's call a few minutes ago.
Let's talk about, just for a minute, let's kind of shift gears and talk about what it's like to be a mom of a child who is incarcerated. Let's share a little bit with the community, and we'll start with you, Brandy. Just share a little bit about what it's like, what the impact of incarceration is on you.
It's life changing. I mean, my phone is now like glued to my hand. You know, it's my only communication with my child at this point. You know, it's a very helpless feeling. As a mom, you know, if your baby's telling you he's hungry, you know, what are you gonna do? Run to the store, cook him something, buy him pizza, you know? And when your baby's in there like, Mom, I'm hungry, you know, and you can't do anything about it, like it breaks you, and I just feel like you continuously get broken by, you know, little things you can't do as a mom to care for your child. And it affects the whole family too. You know, like in my situation, my son has two younger brothers. You know, they've had this person with them their whole life, and then now all of a sudden he's gone. And he's there, he's alive, yes, but he's gone. You know, like that's heartbreaking too, because now I have to watch my other ones, like how are they adjusting to life
How are they processing it?
Yes, yes, yeah. And then let's not talk about financially. They, you know, that's
Actually, yeah, let's talk about financially.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Let's
Yeah.
talk about it.
phone calls. You have to pay for phone calls. You have to pay now for video visits. You have to pay, once again, like I said, to feed your child. So it's to text message them, to send them pictures of their siblings. You have to pay for every little thing, you know, just so your child could be somewhat included in the outside world and included in the family still.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they can have that inclusivity. You know, most people, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you talk, and I know, you know, when I share the trials and tribulations of being a mother of a son who's incarcerated, and of course the financial, right? Because really it's like supporting another household.
Yes.
Correct.
Because I'm not going to let my kid go without commissary. I'm not going to let my kid go without being able to make whatever phone calls. I mean, on my Securus account, I think you have up to 10 numbers that can be approved. I have so many different numbers on there because I want him to have some type of normalcy.
Yes.
So I said all that to say this, is that most people, some people that are going to listen to this podcast are going to say, what? Well, that's their fault.
Yeah.
They're incarcerated. It's not a resort. It's not, you know, somewhere to be fun. Well, what do they think you know, I get so tired of hearing that type of stuff because I know at times, like when my brother was incarcerated, my brother went into the prison system at the age of 19 behind a heroin addiction. And I remember thinking that way, gals. I remember thinking like, well, he got himself there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to spend every single weekend. I'm going to go see him, but I'm not going to spend every single weekend to go see him, you know, because I didn't really have an understanding, and the dynamic between the relationship between my brother and I was completely different from my parents, right? My parents made the visit every other weekend. They would go see him and support him. And I think that's where people make the big mistake of making those types of comments, because regardless, it all comes down to, for all of us moms, on this side and on that side, is that we have unconditional love for our children.
Correct.
We're going to love them through every mistake. We're going to love them through every accomplishment. We're going to love them through every heartache, you know? And I feel that people have to have an understanding of, they don't have to have an understanding, but if you don't have something good to say, don't say it at all.
I choose to live my life that, what if the roles were reversed and I was the mother of the person that died? How would I want to be to that family that impacted my family that way? I try to sit on both sides of the fence because I think hatred brings nothing good for anybody.
Right.
And we're all going to continue to have hurt, moms and families on the opposite side of us and us, until we all figure out how to help our children not be in this situation.
And in a perfect world, I don't know what the other side feels or what they go through. And I can't even imagine. There's days, you guys, that I will be driving and I'll think like, oh my God, like I can't even imagine the heartache that she carries, or I can't even imagine, my heart. I do hold space for them.
Exactly.
And we all do. And we've
We've
talked,
discussed this
we've
many
discussed
times.
it many times. You're right. And the thing is that people have to remember that these are our children. They're our children. Josiah is my son, and I'm going to love him unconditionally, and I'm going to love him through the next 5 years, 6 years that he has behind those walls. And I'm going to fight for him, and I'm going to fight for reform, and I'm going to fight for all of those things, and I'm going to stand, and I'm going to do it with my head held high, because that's my son, and I love him unconditionally.
Yeah. And for me, I just think like people always think like it can't happen to them. And I think my biggest eye opener through this all is like meeting you ladies, because in mine and my son's situation, it's like, oh, we're that's what's expected to happen. I was in addiction. I was in prison. His dad was in addiction. His dad was in prison. And of course, that's where our kids are going to go. But meeting ladies like you, like Tracy and Kim and, the other moms in the support group, just really opened my eyes to that. It can happen to anyone,
Holds no boundaries.
Exactly. Yeah.
Crime and drugs do not discriminate.
Nope.
Yes.
They don't.
Yes.
Bottom line, they just don't. I think about my parents who are going on 60 years of marriage, who had an amazing foundation for my brother and I. We were like the Griswolds. Every summer we always looked forward to school being out because we knew that our parents were going to take us on a family vacation, and we had a great upbringing. We had 2 loving parents. Were they perfect? No, of course they weren't. My mom and dad had their own trauma from their childhood. And I don't care what family you come from, whether it's prestigious or a place of poverty, everybody has some type of trauma in their lineage.
Yes.
They just
100%.
do. They just do. And so I said that to say that, we had amazing parents who were engaged, who we knew coming home from school, we had a bowl of cereal, we did our homework, and then my mom came home, she made tortillas, she made the best dinners always. My mom always prepared a hot meal for us, always. My dad was a hard worker. My brother was heavily involved in sports. He played baseball and was a damn good baseball player. Yeah. I mean, he was amazing. And when he was 19 years old, he got introduced to heroin. That first shot of heroin paved the way for his life. Until today, my brother is 55 years old, and he's still out in the street, And I ask him sometimes, I'm like, don't you get tired of being out here? He's like, not really. And I'm like, you don't? But it's like, It's almost like he's just become so like accustomed. Like that's his life. And I also feel that he thinks like, wow, I'm already, 55 years old. Why am I going to try to change now?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like me, I don't know if maybe like, I think you've shared, right, that your brother is incarcerated as well? Or
both my brothers were
okay.
incarcerated. Yeah. We were all addicts. So, yeah, I think I've heard that phrase before. Like, why am I going to switch up now? Like for what? This is my life. Basically, I've spent like building my legacy, why am I going to turn it around now? And I don't know. That's a hard one, because like you said, with your brother, it's still a struggle. So, I know right now the topic is the kids, but there's a lot of how do we get that mindset to change?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I know. And the thing is like my brother's had support. My parents supported him through, his incarceration. But I think that it all just boils down to wanting the change. Like you, Brandy, you got tired of being tired, And you made that change, and a huge shift, not just a small shift. It was a huge shift.
Yeah. And I'm a mom. I don't know, us moms have a different type of drive, I think.
Right.
There's
Especially
still
when,
moms, Brandy, that choose to live that life,
Yeah.
and their kids are out here struggling as well. There are several moms who are incarcerated right now and don't even know that their kids are in the juvenile detention center on homicide charges.
yeah, that's true.
Do you see a lot of that, Trace? Or do you hear?
No, I don't. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
Awesome. So we have one of our guests calling in right now. His name is Tim, and he's calling us from a New Mexico facility. And we are going to give him the opportunity to share with us.
Can you hear Kim?
Yeah.
So do you want to?
Do you want to put Jarrell on first, or do you want to go first?
You want to go first? Everybody want to go first or want to go next after me? I don't care. I'll go.
Do you want the phone? You ask.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Kim.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me join.
Absolutely. We're happy that you're here with us, sharing space and talking about probably one of the biggest problems in our community right now. And I just want to start with asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, whatever you are comfortable with sharing.
Okay, so, so you want me to share a little bit about myself, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Timothy Chavez. I've been locked up since I was 15 years old. 22 now, I'm about to be 23. And, what else would y'all want to know?
Why don't you tell us, how did you first get involved in any kind of trouble and what led to it?
What kind of got in first a bit of trouble? I don't know, just being, not really, when I was young, just doing the first thing I thought, in my head, being young and dumb. I think the first thing I really did was, what did I say? I don't know, I just, not thinking. I was using my head when being young and not thinking.
Right.
Kind of falling into, everything around me.
Right. Was there a specific moment or event that made you realize you were on the wrong path?
Honestly, I don't think I really realized it till I was sitting in the cell and just, thinking about my life.
And what were you thinking when you were sitting in there?
This is really what I've, put myself to, and this is my life. I messed up, and I wish I would have realized all this before. I wish I would have not taken this for me to learn this.
Right.
I wish I would have known this before I was sitting in this situation.
Right. Can you share your experience with the legal system with us?
With the legal system, oh no, I believe, if they were, believe more in, rehabilitation than just punishing us and locking us down, there would be a lot better things. Teaching us instead of just locking us in a cell, give us the programs to learn from the things, more things what we did, give us opportunities and programs to, teach us more things to do in life than what we knew.
Right.
Instead of just locking us in a cell and then telling us, oh, you did this wrong, and then just locking us down and then letting us out. I think if they really talked to us more and gave us programs that taught us stuff and gave us opportunities and more tools on our belt to be successful in life, we would.
Right. And the facility that you're currently in, Tim, do they offer those types of programs?
Well, not really. There's a few programs, but it's really hard to get into them. Sometimes you want to sign up for them, and then they kind of dodge you back and forth how to get in. You send a request, well, come down here, and then I come down there, and they tell me, well, send a request. I'm like, well, which one is it? Which one do you want me to do? So they want me to do one thing to sign up for it, but when I do that, then it's the opposite.
Right.
So it's kind of do you want me to benefit and be better, or do you want me to not do this stuff?
Right. And what do you feel is like why do you think that they take so long to let people in on those programs? What do you feel it is? Do you feel like it is because there's a long wait list, or is it more of the lack of motivation on their part?
Lack of motivation on their part. They don't really, like, they're not really worried about us bettering ourselves. Like, honestly, it's just like, yeah, because if they did, they provide us more opportunities, more programs.
Right.
So I feel like there should be way more programs to get us set up for life and like give us tools on our belt to be successful when we get out.
And what would that success look like for you? What do you think would work for you and everybody else behind the walls to help you guys? What kind of programs do you feel that they should offer there?
Like life skills, things that we would use on daily things. Like for me, I've been gone since I was 15 years old, so like I've never had a job. I've never had my driver's license or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then career opportunities, occupational stuff.
Yeah, clear opportunities and like work things. Like me, I like welding and stuff like that, or something like that, electricians and stuff like that. But to give us skills so when we get out, we can get jobs and be successful instead of we getting out and it's just you're a felon and I have no life skills up.
Teaching them trades.
So then what am I
Right.
supposed to do then?
Right, exactly. And do you feel that like they're being incarcerated, that they push you to react and do more harm than they do good?
How would you like? What do you mean by that?
Like, do you feel like they like poke the bear? Do you feel like they just like nag on you guys just to like get you in trouble, to lock you up so they don't have to deal with you guys? Or do you feel like there are some like good like COs in there that really do try to like treat you guys like human beings and not dehumanize you?
Yeah, I guess it's like a little bit of both. You know, some like that, some aren't.
Yeah.
You know, there's some that like just like that. Yeah.
So Tim, I'm going to ask you. We're gonna change gears here for a minute, and I'm going to ask you, how important is it for young people to have positive role models or mentors in their lives?
Very positive. If you have someone that like you look up to and like you want to be like them, and they show you the positive ways, then you're gonna be more to do that positive stuff. But if you have nobody to look up to or like that, then you're just like a lost way. You're just in your own way, trying to find bumping your head on the way.
Right.
You don't know the right things to do, so you're just gonna keep doing what your mind tells you to do, and sometimes it's not the right thing because you don't think right. Especially when you're young, like 15 years old. Your frontal lobe or your brain isn't developed, so like you don't know, like you're not thinking right, like rationally in situations.
Right.
But if you have someone to look to and like ask advice, and they lead you in the right way, then yeah.
And how do you think we can better understand and support kids who are at risk of falling into crime?
The way to support them, just giving them the advice and the guidance to know, like, stuff like me, like, personally me, like, if I would have known the things that I knew, like, now, like, I wouldn't have made the mistakes I made.
Right.
Like, so I think just getting the advice from people that have already lived those mistakes and gone through them, they would give them a better outlook on the situation that they're in.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you feel that you have found some of those people where you are now? Like some men who give you more positive advice than maybe that are out here?
Oh, of course, yeah. I've ran into people that, like, life experience, like, people that live through it and, like, give you advice on it. So, yeah, of course, I've ran into people that give me advice that is, like, that's taught me, yeah. Like, you always can learn something from someone else. Like, someone that lived through it, why go through it when someone else has explained to you what's going to happen, the outcome of it. You just have to be willing and open to, like, listening to someone else, talking to them and listening to their life experiences.
That's awesome, Tim. Thank you for sharing that with us. And what advice would you give the kids who might be getting involved in crime or illegal activities right now?
Just think there's more, like, look at the other ways, take a step back and just think more about it and, like, your situation and think what, like, seek advice and like someone to help you and guide you. Like find someone that like a mentor or someone like positive in your life and just seek advice for like your choices and what's going on with you.
Right. Do you feel like you've found that where you are now? Like, do you feel like you have found like positive, like a positive, although you are where you are behind the walls, have you found positive role models there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my son
Of course.
has the same experience. You know, Josiah always shares with me that, you know, Mom, sometimes I sit down with like an OG and, you know, he'll just run it down to me and tell me like, when I came here 15 years ago, you know, I was running amok too, but then I finally came to my senses and thought about, you know, my future and what am I doing, you know, what foundation am I laying now for my future success? Because it does, right? Can you agree with that, Tim, that although you are where you're at, you still have to set a foundation for your future success?
Of course, it's always with anything in life. You have to set your goals and for everything in future, for your future.
Right. And Tim, what are your hopes for your future?
Just to be successful and just move on with my life and just be a successful person and like change everything. I live my life and like I want to be like a welder and just have just put this past me. Move on with my life and be a better person, successful person.
Right.
Help other people that don't go down the same, end up like I did.
Well, I think you have a great influence on our youth out here when you get out, and we're excited for you to come home and, you know, be a successful man here in the community and to help our community and to help our youth, because you guys are the ones that are going to have more impact on these kids than anybody, you know, because I know at a young age, I would listen more to, you know, somebody who has walked the walk and not learned something out of a textbook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than talk
Yeah,
the talk.
of course.
Yeah.
Right? Can you agree with
Of
that
course.
too?
Yes.
Oh, of course. 100%.
Well, we're really happy that you're here with us tonight, and thank you so much for sharing. And we just look forward to you coming out and being successful and helping our youth in the street. And we know that you're going to make a huge impact.
Thank you. Of course. You gotta just try your best every day.
We're proud of you.
Yes, very much.
Thank you.
Every day, kiddo.
Every day, every day. Thank you, Tim. Is Jarrell there with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna give him the phone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, babe.
Hello.
Hi, Jarrell.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay for the time being.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We are so happy that you were here with us and are willing to share.
Okay,
You wanna
that's
tell-
good.
do you-
Thank you too for having us.
Of course, absolutely. Jarrell, do you want to share a little bit with us about your incarceration, maybe like when you went in, how old were you?
Okay, yes,
This call will be terminated in 2 minutes.
The call
I'm
stopped.
Jarrell Frazier. I was locked up when I was 17 years old in 2002, and I've been down ever since. This is going on my 24th year straight, so it's kind of been a while. It's been a struggle, like a roller coaster, up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just been trying to stay strong, trying to strengthen my faith at the same time, and just continue to do my best to, you know, build up my thought process and different things around me to try to educate myself and do the things necessary that I feel will be help me become successful when I have the opportunity to come home. So that's, to sum it up, that's kind of like a short summary of what I've been going through.
This call will be terminated in 1 minute.
Do you want to hang up and just call us right back?
Yes, I
Okay.
will.
Okay. That's awesome.
So that is a part of our conversations, daily conversations with our children.
Yes.
The-
This is our life.
This is our life.
I don't like that lady's voice. I just like listening
We
to
are
her.
sick of her.
The 2-minute warning lady.
Yeah.
I don't like her.
We are sick of her.
I guess I'll start hearing her voice once Josiah gets a tablet, right? They're supposed
Yeah.
to get their tablets like any time now. So I'm hoping that that's going to take place. That way we can just send messages like you did. And, oh,
Answer and then hit one.
This is a prepaid call
You
from
have to hit one.
Timothy Chavez.
an inmate at the correctional facility. Your call has been accepted.
Jarrell?
Hello, yes,
Okay.
I am.
All right, Jarrell, I wanted to ask you a little bit, ask you a few questions. The first question I want to ask you is, how does the experience of being incarcerated as a young person affect your future, in criminal behavior?
It could either go up or down. Like, I feel like being incarcerated as a young man, now growing into an older man, I feel like there's something called arrested development, to where it's like you still feel like you're young, and you're not really as young as you feel like you are, but I don't know, it kind of hurts it in a lot of ways, because when you're locked up with this amount of time that I have received, and, I'm working on trying to get it back and trying to prepare for the parole board, but there's less programs or whatever that's available to those who have, like, a life sentence as a juvenile than those who have 5 years or less, so it's kind of, it's horrible in a sense. There's no way to sugarcoat it, because it makes you feel discouraged. So, I don't know, you really got to have, like, the strength to just want to do it and want to do better, because if not, it'll kind of, like, play mind games with you to where your mental health is pretty much at stake.
Right.
Does that answer what
Yeah,
you're saying?
and I know you've been there, you said, since the age of 17.
Yes.
Did you go straight to prison at the age of 17 or 18?
Oh, I was in the D home, which is JDC now, I guess. But I was there for 11 months, and then I did 2 more years in the MDC before I arrived at prison.
Mm-hmm. And Jarrell, just real quick, the 24 years that you've been there in Department of Corrections, what type of reform have you experienced, if any?
Honestly, I've experienced the opposite of that. Like, it seems like there's no programs for gentlemen like myself. And if I didn't have, like, this juvenile bill to just pass, like, the second chance, like, I wouldn't have had some of the opportunities that I just received recently. So everything was just reading books and, like, studying my legal work the whole time, like, trying to get my case overturned. But as far as, like, any kind of life skills or any kind of programs provided to me, it's slam to none, honestly.
Mm-hmm. So you haven't really experienced any type of reform while you've been incarcerated?
No, honestly. And I came in as a young man at a different time. It was like a little more, I don't know how to sugarcoat it besides saying it was a little more rowdy at that time. So I felt like I had to stand on my own 10 toes, and I had to, like, basically stand up for whatever I felt was right, and it kind of earned a reputation. So that's why, like, arrested development is one of the things that keeps reoccurring in my mind to kind of discuss in this situation, because later on things change, and now it seems like it makes me looked at in a different light than the light that I want to be looked at in, or that what I'm striving for.
Right. Right.
Do you feel like you have been more traumatized since being in there?
Yes, definitely. I kind of had a rough life growing up, but in here it just made me more traumatized because, like, I would think that the Department of Corrections would be about, like, reform or be about, like, helping you think through problems to come up with different solutions instead of leading to, like, acts of violence or, you know, verbal abuse or anything like that. So, and that goes from coming from the juvenile system too. Coming from juvenile system, I felt like that should be something that's also included is like programs or life skills, like as far as how to communicate better or how to, just be a stand-up man. I feel like those things aren't taught, like a man or a female, so it goes both ways, but like how to keep your word or how to, when you shake somebody's hand, look them in the eyes, like certain things that aren't taught no more.
So are you saying that when you were in the juvenile system and at MDC, those things weren't taught to you then?
Oh, no, definitely not. Those are some of the things that you just pick up along the way, or I was fortunate enough when I was younger. My mother, she's rest in peace, but she taught me a lot of different morals, how to be respectful, how to keep my word and certain things before, things kind of turned out to get a little bit more rough on the street. So I picked those things up, and I just learned the better I conduct myself, the better things that I receive in the outcome.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, Jarrell. We really appreciate you taking the time. We're gonna switch gears on you a little bit. I just want to ask you a couple of questions, and you can answer however you're comfortable answering. But as you know, we have a huge problem on our streets with the youth and youth violence and gang activity. What motivates young people to join gangs, and what role do gangs play in perpetuating youth crime? Do you feel?
Honestly, and not to put anyone down, because I know a lot of the men have been in prison, so like a lot of kids are growing up without father figures, and the females are left out there to fend for themselves, the mothers, and so I take my hat off to them for sure. But I think yeah, you're welcome. I think it's a lack of like love and comfort, like being comfortable. That I think kids go out and look for family, that maybe uncles or maybe aunties or maybe like nobody's there to support the immediate family, so they just go out looking for opportunities to, feel loved or feel, accepted into certain things. So they go out looking for that, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of good role models running around on the street for sure.
Right. They're looking to be a part of some type of unit, if not the family unit.
Yes. And I think that's the main unit, honestly. Everybody comes from a different community out there in our city, so that's something that's to be proud of. You should be proud of that. But first and foremost, I think you should be proud of your family and represent, your family, your last name. Those who would hurt without you, that's who you need to be representing, honestly.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right. And don't we wish that we could all think that way, right? And that's why I think it's so amazing and important that, you guys are here tonight to share with us and to share with our community and to share with our youth, to hear your perspective from behind the walls and not just somebody out here that's never experienced that.
Yes, that does. That is very important right there because, like, sometimes even though you may be saying the right thing, um, it seems like they don't think that you are, and so like they'll think, oh, this ain't right until they run into circumstances. It's like, dang, I should have listened to my mother, or I should have listened to that outstanding woman that's at the community or on the podcast, like before I bumped my head and had to figure it out the hard way.
Right, absolutely right. Jarrell, are anti-gang programs like after-school activities or community outreach successful in steering youth away from criminal organizations? And I know that you've been in there a long time, but when you were a youth, let's just share that for a minute. Those things were available for you, correct? Because I can remember the community centers being wide open for us to play basketball, or we'd go watch, different neighborhoods play basketball against one another. What do you feel about that?
Honestly, I think that it was always open, but it wasn't utilized in the right ways. Like, I felt like in the summertime, those opportunities were more available, like for community centers to play against each other, basketball or tournaments or different things like in the summertime. But I think throughout like the school year, there was always like a computer class that was open, but there was really like not too many opportunities or funding for those type of things.
Right.
So like I remember showing up and it was an empty computer class, like with one teacher from the elementary school, and which I went to Thomas Bell Community Center, so I kind of remember those things. But like I think it lacked a few things, and not to put it down because it was there, so we could have used it for whatever we could have used it for or benefited from it.
Right. And how do you break the cycle of violence? Not you personally, but how do you break the cycle of violence and crime in communities with a strong gang presence? How do you think that could be used?
I think it should be used as like being mentors in the community instead of like trying to be somebody tough that's running around. Like I remember when I was younger, like I haven't had the best, mentors around as well, but I remember that everybody used to like be there for each other, like in the most I can't say sensitive or delicate ways, but like we had senior citizens around, we had children around, I was a child myself, around. But I think communities and like different neighborhoods or different gangs kind of need to realize that it's not about retaliating against each other, or it's not about trying to put up a facade that you're hard or whatever. I think that educating yourself makes you hard. I think that being there for your loved ones when they need you, that's what makes you tough, not just going out there pulling pistols or flashing stuff around, and later on you got to back it up, so you're putting yourself in a position to where you have to do those crimes. I think thinking smarter, not harder, is some of the things that I think would help calm down the violence in the communities,
That's
personally.
awesome.
That's awesome, Jarrell. That's
Yeah.
perfectly said.
This call will be terminated in 2 minutes.
Well, Jarrell, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate all your input. We appreciate your authenticity. And then we also just appreciate you sharing and being open and vulnerable with us tonight. I couldn't thank you enough.
Can I real quick
Yes.
before it hangs up?
Yeah, hold
Hi,
on.
Esteban. Can he maybe say something to
Yeah.
my son before he hangs up?
Yes, absolutely. So one of our guests on the podcast, she's another mom from Stronger Together, Never Alone. Her son is in RDC right now, and he's only 17, so he's waiting. Is there something that you can share with him? He can hear you right now.
Can you hear us, Devon?
Oh, he can hear me. First and foremost, I would try to tell you not to join none of these prison gangs coming through here because it's pretty much all a setup. And if you can, just try to, if you don't have your GED, try to work on
This call will be terminated in 1 minute.
in these GED books and try to read as many books as you can because this all becomes like a mind thing and it is what you make it. So if you can, keep your head up over there. And I'm over here in Las Cruces. If you happen to come through here, I'll be happy to show you a few things to help you get some education skills and some communication skills, help you get on the workout, help you do something productive with this time. It's unfortunate that you received the time, but you just got to make the best out of what it is and keep your head up. You know, I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the Bible, too. You know, I'm not perfect, but I'm striving for excellence. So, man, keep your head up. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jarrell.
Thanks,
We
Jarrell.
appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for putting this together. And, you know, I'll be more than happy to join.
Oh, that was awesome. That was really
amazing.
awesome.
Thank you. So do you want to introduce?
Oh, yes. So we have our next guest, Esteban, and he is calling in from a facility here in New Mexico from Los Lunas, from the RDC program. And I'm going to go ahead and let Brandy tell us a little bit more and then just move forward with what we're going to talk about tonight.
So I'm just going to let him kind of
Okay.
do the talking. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, or like how much time you got and how old were you when you went in?
I'm Esteban, and I got arrested for murder when I was 15. I got convicted of first-degree murder when I was 17. I got 22 years. So, yeah.
Ha-
So what's up?
So I'm okay. Thank you for introducing yourself. Will you feel better if Kim asks the questions? I think
I don't care.
it don't matter.
No. Do you
Let
want to
Kim
ask?
ask him.
Do you want me to ask him?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it'll be more comfortable than
Okay.
just having this conversation.
Okay. Okay, Esteban, it's me. It's
You're the
Kim. Welcome to our podcast tonight. Welcome to the panel. We're so happy to have you here tonight, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do this and your willingness to share with us. And to not only that, but you are helping our youth that are out there lost in violence and gun violence and crime and all that other stuff. So,
Thank you guys.
yeah, of course. Let me see. Do I have the phone right? Yeah, I have the phone right. Is the speaker right here? Okay. So, Esteban, how did you first get involved in any kind of trouble? What led to it?
Well, my mom met my stepdad, Rhett, and that guy, he was just messed up in the head. So I felt I had to get out of there. I came back to Albuquerque, and it was just one bad thing after another. I felt I had to get some money, and that's all we knew, you know. All we know is what we're taught or what we're shown or what we see.
Right.
So I started doing whatever I seen everyone else doing.
Right. Was there a specific moment or event that made you realize you were on the wrong path?
Yeah, so one day I was going to get a haircut, and I realized that I wasn't carrying, and that was the first time I realized that I was in danger of actually getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew right then that it was just going to get worse.
Right. Did you have to live your life in fear after that?
Yeah, you just kind of got to, you do what you do, and then you're stuck. There's no going back after that. You kind of just have to get used to it.
Right. And looking back, Esteban, do you feel any regret or remorse for the things that you did?
So I feel bad that someone passed away from my actions, but I don't feel bad for the things I did because I felt like what I was doing was right.
And if I didn't do what I did, I felt like I wouldn't be me and who I am today.
Right. Right. And that's fair. That's fair. Can you share your experience with the legal system with us, especially when you were in JDC?
So, yeah, I did most of my time over there.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you in there for?
2.5 years.
Okay.
And so over there, I mean, it's worse than the adult system. You're not worried about other inmates attacking you. You're worried about the staff, the COs harassing you, bullying you, trying to antagonize you, and make you just basically make your life a hell every day.
Right.
And there's only so much you're gonna take before you give into that. And then you're seeing kids getting shackled up and taken to the restroom, getting forcefully strip searched just because they didn't want a grown man staring at them naked.
Right.
And these are kids. These aren't, they ain't even convicted of anything.
Right. And I'm sure that makes you feel violated,
Yeah. Definitely does. And then especially to see one of your friends going in there, coming out crying because, they pulled down his pants, see if he had anything on him. And then they don't, and then they come back finding out that the kid never even had anything on him. They're just doing it because they can, basically.
Right.
Do you feel that there was anybody there that was positive with you?
So when I first got there, the counselor, her name was Jessica. She was there for us, and she advocated for us. And when someone got hurt, she made sure that the upper management knew that there was something wrong. There's something going on. So, and then she ended up having to quit. Well, they were gonna fire her, so she quit just so it didn't look bad on her. But that was the only person I could say advocated for us and made sure that we were okay and that we were safe.
What about when you were in school? You're safe there?
In school, the teachers are a lot of help, but they can only do so much, and they don't see what goes on outside of the classroom. They only see what happens inside the classroom.
Exactly.
And that's a whole different thing. So they do what they can for us, and they are there. They helped me get my GED. They were there for me, helped me graduate high school.
How are you handling this process sitting in Las Lunas? Are you by yourself?
Yeah, I'm by myself. Yeah, it's terrible. I hate it. But it's just because I'm by my. I'm not. I haven't been on. The only time I get to go outside is when I'm going from here to the gym, and I only get to go to the gym twice a week.
And how many times do you get to go outside?
I haven't went outside. I only get to go from here to the gym, and that's when I'm outside.
So they don't let you outside at all?
No.
No.
Wow.
RDC's the hardest.
Because of his age, the general population can't see him or be around him or anything like that.
They don't have like a private yard for them?
They
Do they have a private yard for you, Esteban?
No, they have the cages, but I'm not even allowed to be in the cages in case someone walks by.
Oh, yeah.
And the COs aren't much conversation. They don't want to talk to you. Look like they're fraternizing.
Right. So, Esteban, how do you think we can better understand and support kids who are at risk of falling into crime?
Well, I mean, most kids that are falling into crime, they don't want their parents, they don't want their people to know, unless the people that they are telling are the ones giving them the gun, basically,
Right.
And like, there's those signs, so that someone's doing, they're not coming home, their grades are bad, their attendance is terrible, and you're dropping them off at school every day. So you know they're starting to go down that path, but you don't know how bad it's getting. And I don't think you can understand that they'd have to ask you for help. They have to want help.
Right. What was your experience in school? Like with the teachers when you were out here? Like, what was your experience with the APS school system?
When I was in school, I felt like all the teachers tried to make me feel stupid. Like, they knew I didn't know the answer, and they kept calling on me. And then, like, I'm sitting there looking like a dumbass, and I just kind of didn't want to go no more. So I didn't go. It was, none of the homies made me feel like that. You know, I felt like I had a family. Like,
Exactly.
like, I felt like I had a family, like, someone that wasn't there for me at home. You know what I'm saying? Only the only people I knew as family were the homies. My family that was there for me, they weren't there for me like that.
Right. Yeah, my son went through the same experience as Esteban in the school system. They demeaned him. They made him feel stupid. They alienated him. They always put him in the back of the classroom. Same thing. Same thing with your experience.
Yeah, and if you come in late, they whole class watching while the teacher scolds you in front of everyone.
I actually have a video of my son being yelled at by one of the teachers because one of the other kids recorded it and put it on social media, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. Esteban, what advice would you give the kids who might be getting involved in crime or illegal activities?
Well, all I can say is I can't be a hypocrite, but I can only give advice. So all I can say is stop it at the source. Don't even try to jump off that porch, because it's like you get in the water and you know you're gonna drown, but you get in anyway.
Right.
So it's just better off not even starting that. Your homies are gonna do it and you're gonna be around it, but you don't gotta be in it.
Right.
You don't gotta go down that path.
Right.
If you had the opportunity, if there was a cool community place to hang, other people that you trusted to talk to what you guys are experiencing, would you go? Would you hang there? Would you listen to those people? Do you think if you had a place like that, you wouldn't be where you are right now?
Well, you could go, but it's like you're gonna go there for an hour or two, and you come back home, and then there's your big uncle right there. Or there's your,
This call will be terminated in 2 minutes.
and they're showing you what's up. Like you could do that, and they're gonna tell you what's up. They're gonna try to give you some game, but it's up to you if you want to follow it. And then at that, you don't know what your homies are gonna think about you going to a place like that.
Right. Wow. You guys have a lot of peer pressure. You know, you guys deal with a lot. Your generation deals with a lot. And Esteban, what are your hopes for your future?
And I wanna get my college degree. I did high school already, and that was amazing. I loved high school, and so I wanna start up on some college, get out and be educated, and I wanna understand people like me better. So I want to go for psychology. I want to major in psychology and the brain.
That's amazing. I'm so proud of you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I just want to be able to help people.
This call will be terminated in 1 minute.
And I'm not saying, because there's 1,000 fish, and you're only gonna catch one or two. And as long as you only help one person in your whole life, that's more than you can say for a lot of people. So that's what I want to do.
I love your perspective, Esteban. Really, I do. I think you're going to do amazing. I think that, you have a bright future. You have an amazing mom who is here to support you. You have, the family support. You have siblings who love you. You have a group of moms from Stronger Together, Never Alone who love you and support you.
Yeah, I appreciate them.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on here, and I appreciate what you guys are doing for the community. It's really gonna make a difference.
Well, thank you, Esteban. We appreciate that, but we also appreciate your vulnerability of joining us here tonight and your willingness.
And that's what I'm saying. I want to help people. And
Lost him.
That was amazing. I don't know what happened to my son, but
The bear hasn't called. Huh?
yeah, he hasn't called. But I feel so blessed. I feel so blessed with these gentlemen who, came on here tonight and shared with us and educated us, right?
Right.
That was a lot of education
It was.
and a lot of knowledge for us, because I think at times some people think like, oh, you're just the moms and you're just crying because your kid's incarcerated. Like, our kids are going through real life fucking bullshit in there.
Right.
Like, there's no fucking reform in prison. Like, how are you helping these people and expecting them to come out on parole and do good when there's not even no programming? I mean, Jarrell's been in there for 24 years? Since he was 17 years old. And we just heard him say, there is limited resources. Like, come on, Department of Corrections, like, really. But then, it all goes back to that thing. And this is what makes me so fucking mad, is that I think about when people say, Celinda said this, empty beds, right? They don't want empty beds in the Department of Corrections because then they're not making money. And without our people committing crimes, not even just our people, but other people, you know what I mean? No, but they wouldn't have a job.
If they had reform in there, they would have empty beds. So of course they don't want the reform in there.
I mean, it's there. The programs are there. They make it look like they're doing great things, but it's very limited amount of people that get into those programs. They're pushing their new bus that's like a career pathway, welding, CDLs, but
Josiah's been on the wait list for the electrical classes for almost 6 months now. So, like, is it really a wait list, or are they just not doing it and not,
I don't know.
it's insane. I mean, what was your experience, Brandy? Did you experience any type of like reform? Is it different, you think, in the prisons for women?
So, I think I just got blessed in my prison stay, because when I got there, it was at CCA, Grants Prison. So it was one private prison for all the women in the state of New Mexico. Well, I was there for a few months, maybe 3 or 4 months before they transferred us over. Then they split up the women because I guess there was too many. So the long timers, as we call them, the people that are going to be there for the longer stretches, went to Western. And the short timers, which I would have been, I did 1.5 years. And we went to Springer. So Springer was, they said, like an experimental type thing. So they started opening up a lot of programs. I had parenting classes. I had reentry classes. I had education, same thing, kind of like the men's prison. You have to have a certain amount of time. Like, you can't be over the amount of time or under the amount of time in order to, like, get a college degree or a GED or anything like that. But they were opening quite a bit of programs. My boss, actually, who I work for now, was one of the main ladies when she got there. She started creating all these programs.
Oh, I love
And
that.
yeah, and so I kind of, like a little puppy dog, I was like, whoa, she's doing things. This is somebody who I want to mimic. So she has been a mentor of mine
Yes.
since then. And yeah, so like I said, I kind of got blessed in there that we did have opportunities.
Right.
We did have the different programmings and stuff like that.
I'm just curious why they offer more in women's prison than they do men's.
Yeah. And see, that was a short-term prison. So I don't know about
okay.
grants
Right.
for the people who are there for longer terms.
Right. Right.
So
Well, let's finish up with our agenda. Our last topic, and Brandy, this is going to be focused. I want you to engage on this, is mental health and crime. And I want to ask you what you feel is the link between mental health challenges such as trauma, ADHD, and youth crime.
So I guess a little bit like the trauma response. So that's what comes to mind. And it kind of just took me back to my son's sentencing, when you're traumatized as a child, you have these certain reactions that you do, the fight
Fight or flight response?
Yes, fight, flight, or freeze.
Oh,
or
okay.
something like that. And so those are your trauma responses. So a child who's been in a household where there was domestic violence, constant fighting or people getting beat on and stuff like that, comes out into a world where they hear somebody yell, and they automatically go into one of those three responses. And majority of the time, I think it is like a fight response.
Right. Right. You're always like in
on
that
it.
like survival mode.
Yes.
Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I got to protect. I got to protect. Whether that's yourself or someone, a loved one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, should mental health care be a more prominent part of juvenile justice interventions?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yes.
In what way?
I mean, I look at Timothy's, I say this all the time. I look at his stint in the juvenile system and I look at the other moms and their kids in the juvenile system. And COVID caused a lot of issues. But my kid got a lot of extra mental health therapeutic programs that I would say Esteban had no opportunity to get. And now he's sitting in RDC alone with nothing. Why couldn't he be at YDDC getting the therapeutic programming and the services that he needs and skills to prepare him to be a better productive person while he's accountable in DOC?
You're absolutely right about that, because I feel like even with Josiah, he had to go do a little bit of time in YDDC for another charge that he had, and he got amazing therapy there. Like, I feel that if Josiah didn't go to YDDC before he went to prison, I don't think he would be functioning the way he is right now.
I'm proud to hear Esteban talk the way
Yes,
he talks.
absolutely.
He's a strong young man, and he has a good, strong support system from you and all that you've learned. So you're giving Esteban what he didn't get through the system. But a lot of parents don't have those abilities to give that. I think all juveniles should stay in a juvenile facility till the age of 21.
I agree.
And I think it's kind of like you said earlier too, that why are they even charging juveniles as adults? Why are they even getting these lengthy sentences? Because their brain isn't developed. I mean, we just talked to your son's 22 years old. I mean, look how much more mature or he speaks than, I mean, my son does speak very well for his age, but he's 17, and just those few years of difference, like how much his development has happened. Like, you're not even giving him that opportunity.
Right.
He's being forced to do it on his own. And not everybody has a family that can support them and help them. And some people struggle in prison because they're alone. What are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
Figure it all out alone?
Thank God for people like Jarrell. I was thinking that. I was thinking, man, Tim has like a good friend right there that has a good
Jarrell
mindset.
has an amazing wife, but that's amazing that he found an amazing woman and a great support system in his wife.
Right. God, that's awesome. Brandy, how can the justice system better address the mental health needs of young offenders? And I think you kind of experienced that firsthand, right, with Esteban in JDC?
Yeah. So they had one mental health worker. Well, the lady he was speaking of was a mental health worker. And when she left, they brought in a new mental health worker at some point. She was an older lady. And like we've been talking about, somebody who understands them. You could tell this woman has never probably experienced anything they've experienced today in her life, and she probably did relate with some kids, but I feel like they could have, broadened that, it's like in my line of work, there's more than one peer, because I'm not going to relate with somebody you're going to relate with or that you're going to relate with. We all, can learn from someone. I don't know.
Everybody plays a different role in our lives. You
Yes.
know, like Tracy might play a role in your life and meet a need in you that I can't meet.
Yes.
You know, and vice versa.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
she might give you some advice from a different point of view, where I might give you some advice from a complete opposite point of view. And it's like they say, what's that saying? Eat the meat and spit out the bones.
Yes.
With
Yes.
everything, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I get what you're saying about
I think
that.
our kids need to learn more about themselves. Tim learned some really amazing programs from people about his own self, how to handle the PTSD that he was experiencing and had experienced in life, and giving him tools. You heard Tim use toolbox a lot because he did. He learned many tools on how to handle different situations that he was going to face in life. And our kids need that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they definitely didn't have any of that there. One therapist. So basically one little tool open up to this woman, and that's it. That's all they gave them.
Right.
Yeah.
And Brandy, I think that you probably, well, I don't know, maybe Alicia too. Out of all the moms in our group, I think that your son probably experienced a lot of the negativity at JDC. Can you just take a few minutes to share with us what you wish what they could have done better, and the things that you feel negatively impacted your son, or even you as a mom?
I think they could have basic things, and for us, we take it for granted every day, but like the simple things of like going outside, you know, going to the restroom, getting exercise, feeding them. I mean, they're growing children. How are you going to feed them all a little portion every day and, you know, expect them not to fight, or, you know, try to, I don't know a different word for, like, punk another kid for their food,
Right.
you know, and just the survival of that, making sure their basic needs are met, and the programming and the mental health. My son's mental health really did decline in there, and he had nobody to speak to. He wasn't going outside. He had nowhere to release any of, you know, the anger, anything like that. And then in his situation, he already went in traumatized. He already went in with all this hurt and pain, and then he just went in there to a place that was just causing more. So, yeah, like meeting their basic needs and their mental health is one of those basic needs, I think.
So at times when Esteban would call, what would you hear most from him when he was in JDC?
He was angry a lot, and I'm sure sad, but because, you know, his environment, he didn't really want to cry, so it turned into anger. And then a lot of the, like he was saying, them antagonizing him, the staff. So in one aspect, I guess, if you look like cup half full, half empty, he gained that brotherhood with all the kids in there, because it was like us against them, like the residents against the staff, you know? So, but yeah, a lot of it was like he felt picked on and bullied in there. So there was a lot of anger. And stuff.
Going back to the whole food thing about them not being fed properly, on our last podcast, Chris, who was a guest, said the same thing. He said we'd be hungry, and the staff would bring in Buffalo Wild Wings, and they would just eat it in front of us, and we would all think like, oh, how could we just rush them and take it from them? You know, like, who does that to children? Like, how can you know, eat food knowingly that these kids are hungry and don't get fed properly, and then you take food in and eat it in front of them?
Because the majority of them are there for a paycheck.
Right.
There's few people that stop and take the time, like the men that took the time to teach my son how to sit up in the courtroom right, how to handle himself in certain situations that he had no idea how to act, who saw him for who he was and wanted to help him on the next stages of life, it's not just a paycheck. That's not a job. That they have their own traumas and they're inflicting it on to the kids that are there.
You're absolutely right.
Instead of going in and saying, I'm going to make a difference in these kids' lives and I'm going to help them become a better version of themselves, they bully them and antagonize them as much.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's what's happening.
Right. I want to end with this. As moms, because my son didn't go into the juvenile detention center, what advice would you gals give to other parents to advocate? I mean, I know that there have been minimal changes in JDC, right? As compared to what it was a year ago when the Christmas riots and stuff broke out due to our children being, and I say our children because your children are my children.
Right.
The protest.
Yes, the protest. Sorry.
The protest.
Thank you, Brandy.
Yes.
What would you say to parents, moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, whoever is caring for the child that is in the detention center? What advice would you give them to, as far as being supportive to their child, and in what ways standing up for them and making sure that things are running smoothly? And not that you guys didn't. I don't know if you experienced, Trace. I know you advocated a lot for Tim, and you built really good, a really good rapport with a lot of people there. What would you say to parents who might experience what you all experienced?
First of all, listen to your child. If he's telling you something's going on in there, he's probably not exaggerating or lying, or, he's probably happening. And next, call everyone, find out the chain of command, because our children do have rights. They're pre-adjudicated, especially in there, they're pre-adjudicated. And that's one thing I've learned from you lovely ladies, is that our children do have rights. Yes, they committed, a crime that they're not yet convicted of in that stage. And, they're not just like a ward of the state. We have rights as mothers to still be like, no, he's a child and you're doing this wrong, When we did meet with the county once, I told them, like, because hearing all these things that were happening at JDC, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, if the roles were reversed, I would be in jail. If I locked my child in a room for 23 hours, didn't take him outside, didn't let him get water, he didn't have a toilet in there, made him pee in a cup, or hold it, I would be in jail. I would have major child abuse charges.
Yes, you would.
So why are you allowed to get away with this, And so that kind of like took them off guard, because, it took me off guard when I realized it. I was like, wait, I can't do this to my kid. How come you're allowed to do this to my kid, And so, yeah, we definitely have rights as parents, and our children still have rights, even in the adult facility.
Absolutely.
They're still people. They're not, throwaways. So just remember that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandy.
Yes.
What do you think, Tracy?
Just talk. Ask questions. Knowledge yourself. Learn everything that you can learn. I know it's exhausting sometimes and it's overwhelming, but that's where we all come in to help people when they're new in the system and they're struggling. But that's your kid, and do everything you can to fight for them. If that means trying to get an outside therapist in to work with your kid, calling the staff members and just letting them know they have a family that cares about them, and this is my child, and we need to help them be in the best mental place that they can
Right.
be. These kids are going in with traumas. They've been involved in a case that they're alleged to have done something. They have their own traumas of what happened in that incident that no one is understanding, that they have to lay in that bed at night and play it over and over and over in their head. So they need all the adults in the room to help them, and that's what we need to do.
Right. Absolutely. I'm just so grateful you guys for our group, and I'd like to leave this with our listeners today that all three of us are mothers of sons who are incarcerated. We are also part of an amazing support group called Stronger Together, Never Alone, and I couldn't emphasize that any stronger. Is that we are, because we help one another so much, right? When we have a hard day, we just get on our chat and we're like, oh, I'm struggling today, guys, please pray for me. Or I'm going through this, please pray for me. Or my kid's going through this, please pray for me. So I just want to say, any parents, maybe you have a family member, maybe you have a family friend that, has a child, or, an adult child or family member in the in DOC, we are here, right?
Yes.
We are here to support our community. We are here to support our community of moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas, and we're here to support them and their loved one.
Yes.
And also available to people is the Millions for Prisoners. Celinda Guerrero, she's amazing. She advocates for our community and for our people behind the walls strongly.
Yes.
And then
She's
also
been there for me as well. Yeah.
And Brandy, I know, can you share just a quick minute about the line of work you do, just so you can put it out there so people are aware of the organization?
So I work for an organization called Frontline Resurrection. It's a faith-based transitional recovery home. And I think that keyword there is recovery, because we can get out of our addiction, but until we fully heal and recover, we can't start living our better life. But yeah, we help women out of incarceration, addiction, homelessness, and more recently, we've been helping mothers with their young babies. Mothers get their babies back from CYFD. And I think that's a big deal, because in mine and my son's situation, maybe if I would have had more support as a mother in, a domestic violence situation, that I eventually started self-medicating and, things like that. Maybe if there was more support there for me, my son would have had a better life. But so now that's what I dedicate my life to, is helping, those women. And
Well, thank you, Brandy.
Yeah.
That's huge
Yes.
for our community. And thank you, gals, for being here tonight. I have enjoyed sitting here, sharing space with you, and talking about the most important thing in our lives right now.
yes,
Good night.
thank you, Kim.
Of course.
Thank you.